First up, to spearhead this discussion, we have with us none other than Rakkappan, Senior Director and Head of Government Engagement, India and South Asia, Visa. And joining him, may I please invite Shri Anuj Ranjan, General Manager, FinTech Department, Reserve Bank of India, and Mr. Rajesh Chopra, Senior Vice President, Mastercard. Well, we've got all our three speakers here, ladies and gentlemen. If you're all also absolutely inquisitive about this changing consumer behavior, can we have a round of applause to welcome all of our speakers here? Time to gather some more insights. A very, very riveting topic coming your way. With that, I'd like to hand it over to Ram. Over to you then.
Hello. Am I audible? Good afternoon, everyone. A warm welcome to you all to this panel. My name is Rakkappan, and I'm Head of Government Engagement for Visa for India and South Asia. I'll be moderating this panel today. The topic we are going to discuss today is the changing consumer behavior driving the digital payment evolution. In fact, this is a topic everyone is interested, be it the payment companies, technology companies, regulators, and even the government. Indians are adopting digital payments at a scorching pace. We have risen to the top of the chart in terms of the number of transactions. But do we really understand the changing consumer preferences for how they shop, how they pay, bank, or otherwise engage brands? What does this mean for the merchants, banks, and other payment businesses that serve them? What it means for the regulator? You may probably be aware that the additional factor of authentication through a PIN or a OTP is the chief reason boosting customer confidence, leading to more rapid digital adoption. However, do we know that the fraud in digital payment is on the rise? Do regulators and businesses are protecting consumers from falling victim? Finally, we see a rapid emergence of over half a dozen unicorns in the Indian fintech sector, offering services ranging from payments to cards and multiple payment options. However, do we know what are some of the ways that payment technology and innovation are helping support a more frictionless consumer experience? So these are some of the topics that I'll be discussing with the esteemed panelists today. Let me quickly introduce our panelists. Mr. Anuj Ranjan, who is currently General Manager at the newly created FinTech Department at RBI. He is presently overseeing some of the exciting work at RBI related to FinTech, central bank digital currency, regulatory sandbox, and the innovation hub. A fact that probably not many are aware is that winning gold has been his forte. He has been a gold medalist throughout his academics and even won the Best Employee of the Year award in RBI. Interestingly, he is also a leadership coach. So, sir, thank you so much for accepting and joining us in this discussion today.
My pleasure.
I'm pleased to introduce and welcome Mr. Rajesh Chopra from Mastercard. Rajesh heads the data and services at Mastercard Advisor. He's also a Senior Vice President. He has a wealth of knowledge and distilled experience from hundreds of real-world engagements from banks by helping them with data insights and analytics. Thank you, Rajesh, for joining us today. In the course of next 40 minutes or so we have together, I hope we can amplify some of the questions that I had highlighted earlier. So without further ado, let me first turn to Mr. Anuj for the question. Sir, a recent survey on the topic revealed that consumers keep security at the top of their mind when decide what payment methods to use. I know you are a regulator, but as an individual, do you have any preference? What are the parameters under which you would select a particular digital payment method, or do you use digital payments at all?
Yeah. Thanks, Mr. Ram. Let us look at evolution, and we always kind of try to understand that whether the customer is driving, the behavior of the customer is driving the evolution in payment system, or the payment system is kind of onboarding customers in large number, and therefore, so it's like a chicken and egg story. Which comes first is still a thing which we can ponder over. But I feel there are certain aspects of digital payments where customers gave an indication, and as a regulator, we try to get on board some of the developments and evolution in the payment system. Sometimes, as a regulator, we felt that these are the need of the hour, and therefore, and when you touched upon the security aspect, let me tell you, as a regulator, Reserve Bank, for Reserve Bank, customer centricity is of paramount importance. So any initiative, any innovation which is happening, customer is at the center, and how to ensure that the trust, how to ensure that the security which a consumer is looking for in a digital payment is taken care of to the extent possible. There is no foolproof mechanism that everything which comes will be 100% foolproof, but before we kind of get into it goes into the system, it is kind of ensured that yes, security, customer protection, all they are taken care of. So the sum and substance is customer at the center, protection of customer is very important. And if customer feels that as a regulator, the ecosystem, payment ecosystem is safe, secure, the onboarding increases by leaps and bounds, and maybe COVID has exacerbated, and maybe I was reading somewhere, it has led to, it has leapfrogged for another 3 to 4 years, which we would have achieved in next 3-4 years. COVID, the pandemic has onboarded more customers into this. So again, the comfort, you took example of 2FA, second factor authentication, additional factor authentication. I think as the ecosystem got enlarged, more and more people started joining, the number of frauds also increased. So as a regulator, we found that yes, apart from password, is there a need to have another authentication method and the second factor. Now if you have seen the payment vision, even whether for international transactions, whether we can have second factor authentication, additional factor authentication. So again, if the trust is not there in the ecosystem, I think onboarding will be affected, and therefore we always look at creating trust, keeping customer a very important aspect, and we move forward.
I also asked a question about your individual preference. Some people say, for example, look to in digital payments for convenience, some for rewards, discounts, some for millennials, for example, they look for rewards and stuff. So as an individual preference, and not just as a regulator, what would be on top of your mind? The reason why I'm asking is, we wanted to do a survey with the participants today, just to get their customer preference, but we couldn't run that. But just wanted to get, at least from the panelists, what would be your preference and why?
I think convenience, speed, reduction in cost, I think these are the things which will attract more. The incidental, the cashbacks and the other things may attract, but I think the base, the foundation will be on how convenient it is, how easy it is to use, how it reduces the cost, and I think these will drive, and every individual feels that if the transactions is safe and secure, I think most of the people will go for it rather than look for a small cashback or some benefits here and there.
Okay. Rajesh, what's your views here? I understand Mastercard has commissioned a study or survey on consumer preferences recently. So is there anything that you would like to share, the results of the report, as well as your personal preference? Yeah.
Sure, thanks. Thanks, Ram, and thanks, Anuj, sir, to start the discussion. So you're right. I think from a Mastercard survey standpoint or whatever index we came, I think 3 key elements came as an outcome. I think one was digital, payments are definitely on the rise, right? Customers are really embracing digital payments. Obviously, consumers are also going for convenience. As Anuj also said that convenience is a paramount. But then there is also a component of biometrics, right? Not everyone wants to remember passwords, right? Absolutely, 1-step, 2-step authentication process is there. But are there ways where I don't need to remember password, and this is where biometrics can help, right? You would be amazed to know that 93% of the individuals actually had at least one digital transaction. Now, if we go 3 years back, probably that was not the case. So, to Anuj's point, yes, pandemic has ensured that some of the things have really happened and driven because of the need. But then it's not a short-term phase that we had. It's not that when pandemic is now, on the verge, people will go back to their original choices. Some of those behaviors have really gone for long. So that's what I would say is a summary of some of the instances we have seen. Convenience, as far as security is there, is a key trend that we see. The number of e-commerce transactions are much larger. Even when people are spending at POS, at the shop, they are adopting more contactless ways, right? It might have started from not touching, because of the pandemic, but then that has really ensured that at a particular threshold level, those contactless payments are really on the rise. That's much convenient also. So all these, in a nutshell, are really bringing a lot of evolution to our digital payments landscape. So if you talk about my personal preferences, I would say, yes, convenience is important. One of the key things, especially for small ticket, payments. But when it comes to event-based purchases, or let's say comparatively significant size tickets, rewards, loyalty points, cashbacks, and even some of the other things also excite me. So it's a combination. Some of the, like I said, everyday needs, small needs, convenience is paramount. But for big thing, we will, I'm sure many people in the audience will also like to compare a lot of things before they buy something, aspirational. And that's what I'll also prefer.
So the report that I was highlighting, was that a global report, or does it throw any light on India? The survey results, does it match with what Indian users are thinking, or is it the same? Is it security the top parameter?
Yeah,
anything?
Absolutely. So again, it's a global report, but pretty much I would say India and China are driving a lot of that, I would say data for that report. So absolutely in line with that, and security is, the top need. So you're absolutely right. I think Indian consumers are pretty much having a similar trend. It's a comparatively younger population, millennial population. So adaptation to some of these digital tools is much higher in India. So, even if we did, global index, it was very much relatable to Indian consumers, and a large component of that were people from here.
Thanks. Sir, there is a proverb that goes like this, that trust arrives at the back of a tortoise and leaves on the back of a galloping horse. Now, as a regulator, how is RBI trying to build customer trust and awareness when it comes to digital payments?
A lot of steps. In fact, it is very difficult to cover everything here. But if you look at the recent steps, as I told you about the second factor authentication, we conducted a hackathon where the theme, one of the problem statement was that, is there an alternative, as Mr. Rajesh referred to, biometrics? Is there an alternative to OTP so that the life becomes easy and people don't have to remember? And because a lot of frauds were happening, even people were getting the OTP hacked. So that is one approach where we allowed innovators to come and try, and then maybe wherever regulatory framework is required, definitely we with open mind will try to implement that. Setting up of Reserve Bank Innovation Hub, not only for the products which are regulated by Reserve Bank or under the regulatory perimeter of Reserve Bank, it is for the entire financial sector. So somebody who is looking at insurance sector innovation or capital market innovation can also come and try there. Online dispute resolution that for digital payments we have introduced. So the idea is that customer, if there are gaps, there are frauds happening, we should provide a platform, method, means, so that they come to know, or at least their grievances are addressed and redressed. I can talk about switch on, switch off, which has been provided on the card transactions. It gives you a lot of comfort that when you are traveling, whether in India or abroad, you know that no transaction can happen if I have switched off my online transaction or ATM withdrawals, etc. So these are all trust building measures, which ultimately what we are seeing is that onboarding is increasing. And as Mr. Rajesh referred to, the challenge is how to make this irreversible. The growth has to only go up, only north. So that we have to ensure that if people are getting onboarded, if the trust in the system is there, definitely the graph will always go north. So the process has to be made irreversible. So once a person gets onboarded, and you know, the vision for 2025, it talks about 4 E's and 5 I's. 4 E's is e-payments by everyone, everywhere, and every time. And then the 5 I's are inclusion, integrity, innovation, institutionalization, and internationalization. So we are kind of, all these pieces, if we put together and we ensure that innovation with responsibility, responsible innovation as we always use loosely, if those are taken care of, I think we as a system, it's not about regulator, it has to be a coordinated effort with the fintechs, with the banks, regulated entities, as well as the regulator, to ensure that the trust which is already there, and it's quite high, it is only kind of we scale up, and therefore the evolution is scaled up further. So that is how we are.
I agree with you, because I think one of the recent initiatives of RBI is this 24/7 helpline, right? DigiSati, which as an industry, everyone came together, although it's on the first phase right now. Second is all this Amitabh Bachchan advertisements on TV,
yeah, exactly.
right? What can you?
RBI कहता है, if you go to the RBI website, you'll find all the details. Then we have got Mr. Amitabh Bachchan as the brand ambassador for this awareness on digital, all kinds of transactions and frauds. We have certain international players in cricket, badminton. They're all now pro bono, means being an employee. We are trying to reach to the last corner and tell that, yes, be aware, these are SMSing, phishing, all kinds of things are happening, but if you are aware, things are taken care of. Still people fall into the trap, maybe more awareness, electronic, print media, we are all kind of trying to engage, but then as all of us sitting here, it is each one of us responsibility that we make people sitting on my right and left, center, everywhere aware that these are the risks, these are things which are happening, let us be aware. Otherwise, digital payments, digital transactions are as safe as anywhere in the world. In fact, we are the leaders, and when we go for international meetings, they are all overawed by the kind of payment system and the evolution which is, and the development which is happening in this sector. Because they know if India can do it, which is a diverse population with a vast geography, anybody can do it, but still they are not able to do it. So we must educate and make people aware and see that the trust in the ecosystem is not restored, it is further enhanced.
So Rajesh, so changing the track a bit. So as a technology company, do you think technology is shaping the consumer behavior, or is it vice versa? For example, the consumer behavior, helps in the evolution of payment ecosystem that we understand. What are the kind of offerings that is coming up? Is it primarily due to the consumer's need, behavior, so?
Sure. No, absolutely. Again, I think there's no yes or no answer for this. It's a both ways thing. But I think to build some perspective, right? Since we do a lot of data analytics and insight, when we started, we used to do a lot of, let's say, descriptive analytics, right? What it means is you'll analyze historical trends, you'll see how people are behaving, and based on that, you create solutions, right? Then eventually we move to something called predictive analytics, right? We start predicting based on what the historical trends were, and then create solutions before the consumers actually need, right? And then there is something which nowadays is more called as prescriptive, that it is not only just good enough to predict, but we also need to build awareness around what they should do, right? Which is what prescriptive is all about. Now, to answer the question from a technology standpoint, absolutely, based on what consumers need, there are technology and solutions that we have built over the years. But now the power of computing, as we say, artificial intelligence, is such that we can, the time which it used to compute and used to take a very long time is now reduced. And hence, at a real-time basis, we can really ensure that those behaviors are not only, let's say, evaluated, but also be predictive for future with all the supervised and unsupervised models that we have in artificial intelligence. And then we could create solutions much earlier than when their need arise. And that's what all, I would say, technology companies, many of the fintechs are in, thinking a lot ahead in terms of what future needs will arise based on what we have seen and the pace at which changes are happening. And you would have heard that it's a cliche statement, it's much higher than what it used to be. So we are creating those solutions. Now, again, to your point on are we over predicting, are we under predicting? There's a well-known statement which we say we sometime overdo for things that will happen 1 year from now, but we definitely underdo for things that will happen 5 years from now. So as in whether it's our organization or how the world is moving, we need to go both ways. While we need to continuously create products and solutions on what consumer behaviors are, but then predict what will happen in future and how can we are available there real time, right, to bridge those gaps.
Okay, let me put the question in a different way. Now we see the products like BNPL,
yeah,
right? So was this a product offering which was sort of a bait to the consumer, or do you think there is a need because you have EMIs and other ways, right? So what are these products, the offerings? So and the other day we were talking about SNPL. So why don't you talk about that?
Absolutely. So again, everyone knows that BNPL. Initially it used to be okay. I will go to a showroom, buy a refrigerator, probably pay 5%, 10% of the down payment, and rest of the things will get deducted, right? I think BNPL, the way it is integrated to our daily purchases now, right, with all the e-commerce giants, it's a much more integrated version, much more convenient version, and hence we see, especially for young and millennial population, I think they will probably not aspire for too long to get things. I think when we were growing up, even bicycle used to be our birthday gift, right? And we used to wait for a year that I need to work harder to get a bicycle on my birthday. I think today's population is more around, yes, I will have the capability to pay, but meanwhile, with all guardrails in place, I would like to buy this because that's an impulse buy, and I really want to have iPhone 14 with me before it gets launched in India. I think that's how the behaviors are. Now to talk about the other interesting thing which you spoke about, save now, pay later. Again, I'm sure there are a lot of fintechs now also in the market where that's also serving a particular segment, right? If I go back to again those indexes thing which we spoke about, now in last 2.5, 3 years, what we have also seen is globally and not only in India, the savings have increased manifold, right? People were not able to spend a lot on travel as well as on discretionary spend. Hence, a lot of savings have developed. So there is a population who would, like to get benefits from their saving. It's not like a fixed deposit, but in the way where some of their savings can actually be leveraged and give them advantage to buy something aspirational in mid-term and not in immediate term. And there are companies which are really thriving on leveraging that aspect of consumers and offering them solutions by working a real good model with the different providers in the industry. So again, a lot coming ahead. I'm sure many companies are working to ensure that in an end-to-end payment flow, where are they relevant and how do we plug those gaps? So many of those solutions, I would say, really exciting to see how next 6 months and 12 months are going to play in that area.
Sir, yesterday the governor did talk about the central bank digital currency. He mentioned that RBI is working on it and they will probably start with the wholesale launch followed by retail. Now, what problem is a central bank's digital currency in India trying to address? What will the design look like? And what safeguards do you think we have in place to ensure that the security of the currency and citizens' privacy, and more importantly, I don't think this is a consumer's preference to, I mean, that led to a development of CBDC. It's a technology development. So what's your view on some of these questions?
So you will be disappointed that some of the questions I may not be able to respond because it's in works and we all understand. But on the motive and motivations and technology, I'll definitely try to cover. To start with, I must say this is the consumer behavior which is kind of leading to this, not only in India, across the globe. How it is? We all know the private cryptocurrencies. For the next generation, it looks like cryptocurrency is a revolution, and some of the other sides use that the technology is something which is going to bring this, and everybody started talking about it. So CBDC is nothing but a physical currency converted into a digital currency. Physical cash which we have is digital. Now, if that is backed by a sovereign or by the central bank, and the underlying technology could be new age technology or could be any technology, but as long as it is backed by sovereign, backed by the central bank, I think the trust, which presently is not there when we talk about private currencies. In fact, I always say private currency or privately issued currency is an oxymoron, because a currency cannot be privately issued, and if it is privately issued, it cannot be a currency. So therefore, what we wanted to do is that those next gen people who want to get into this, why not get on with CBDC and enjoy the technology, new technology which is going to support it. Now, the other motivations are the financial inclusion part. Despite a lot of efforts, lot of awareness program, we still find deep interiors where there is no internet, no connectivity, no electricity. There are use cases in CBDC where you get offline facility. So maybe now that a person will know that it is a risk-free or it is a central bank issued currency, as we all know, it is the liability of the central bank. So directly central bank money, if I'm holding, the trust in that currency will be much more than what we have in the present electronic money. So with offline functionality, with trust, maybe the idea is that we will be able to reach the interiors of the country, and people will be started using it. Other motivations are, again, the huge country, the expenditure on currency management, which is physical currency, right from the printing to the time it reaches the bank's currency chest, the transportation, the storage. All that will be history the day. We are not envisaging that it will happen in next 5 years or next 2 years, next 7 years. It's all because we are taking a lead in this. These are all we expect will happen, and ultimately the gains will be that the sovereign, the country will gain. And as he referred to governor's statement, yes, we are working very actively on this, various kind of technology, the security, you mentioned about security, that is again utmost importance, because again consumers who would use CBDC, we need to be very sure that the trust in CBDC is there when we go for a formal launch whenever in the distant future. But we are working on that, various kinds of use cases we are trying, the technology we are testing, we are also looking at the architecture, the design. I will not be able to answer to your specific question, which design. But then we are looking at a wholesale segment. Wholesale means it will be between financial institutions only, and the retail, which will be like people like us can use. Both we are working. Maybe wholesale will come out first. Try to see where the issues are, and if no issues are there, then definitely we move to the next stage. Then we'll try retail, we'll get feedback from the users, and accordingly, based on the feedback, if tweaks are required, if changes are required, if the technology, the platform is to be changed, the throughput is a big issue. because it's a huge country, the number of transactions, the TPS we talk about. So all are on our plate and we are looking at everything. Let us hope that we get onto CBDC ecosystem again, not in a very far from now, but yes, we want to be very sure before we formally launch for a countrywide CBDC.
Just a quick rejoinder. What is it that UPI cannot do that there is a need for a CBDC? Because in other countries, where there is no real-time payments, they leapfrog to CBDC, at least at times. So India has a thriving UPI. I know offline payments is one area, but do you think cross-border is another area that that could help in CBDC?
Yeah. Let me again clarify that UPI is part of payment system. CBDC is part of currency system. Ultimately, the currency system gets merged. One leg will be in payments because ultimately we pay through currency. So there are two different systems so far as a regulator we understand. Now, if we are already so much ahead in payment system, why do we need CBDC? The simple answer is, why not provide more options to people? And as I said, this is central bank's liability, direct claim on the central bank. The trust on CBDC is, as and when people adopt it, will be much more than what we have in electronic money. One of the important features which I would like to mention is the programmability part, which you cannot put in physical cash. Programmability, when I say, see, to the direct benefit transfer, I always refer to some scheme which government announces, Pradhan Mantri Anna Yojana. Whether the people are with that money are purchasing grocery, we do not know. We credit the amount to the beneficiary's account, but after that we don't know what the amount has been used for. But in CBDC, you can program it to ensure that the end use is what you want it to be used for. If it is for grocery, you can only use for grocery. It may be far-fetched in future. Even the loans, the MSME loans will be programmed so that that amount can only be used for MSMEs. So it kind of takes care of so many aspects apart from various other features. When you talked about cross-border, let me tell you the benefit of cross-border in CBDC will be there is no concept of time zone difference because it is instant settlement. So whatever be the time in other country, the settlement happens immediately. The efficiency is amazing because of the technology which some of the countries are trying on the pilot basis. So the benefits which comes from cross-border is also immense. That is another use case. So first we build domestic CBDC and then we can look at how to cross border and then align with other countries. For that, other countries also have to join that bandwagon and do a cross border.
Thank you. Final question to you, Rajesh. So what are the key trends and opportunities in the next decade in digital payments? I'm sorry, you have probably 1.5 minutes.
Yeah, no, I understand. You were already asked on the time. So I would say some of the trends we have already spoken in terms of different modes of payment. I think one of the things is about leveraging blockchain, right? To an extent, and that has an application not only to the payment field but many other fields, right? Like Mr. Anuj was also saying on tracking whether the objective of what we really wanted was achieved eventually or not, right? In payments, and I can tell Mastercard as a company has the second highest patents in blockchain around the world. So a lot of products and solutions are built with that future in mind on how do we ensure that whatever payment methods we create, ensure that the objective of some of those payments are met, till the last point, and we are able to track the entire, I would say, workflow through how it passes by. So, one of the key trends which I will talk to, about, again, I will not be able to predict all the products and solution, but things that all the companies which are really in this space need to take care about: agility, right? How quickly we can come up with the solution. Gone are the days when we used to take months to come up with a product. I think by that time there are 5 other companies who are able to launch this very quickly. So, rather than being specific about any product or solution, I will say trends will be more around be agile, as quickly, quick on feet, many, I would say, opportunities will be there for the companies to really thrive on and, come up with those. That's what, we will see that'll occur for many more years.
Thank you. Can we allow one question or one audience question? Yeah. Is there any question that you would like to pose to the panelists? Anyone? All right. We have a question? Sorry, yeah.
Hello. Yes. Hi, sir. At the at the possibility of sounding a bit naive, I would like to ask this question about digital currencies. So you mentioned these are backed, CBDC specifically is backed by sovereign bonds, if I'm not wrong, or sovereign...
No. So like physical currency is backed by assets, this will also be backed by assets. Okay. Right? Sovereign, not the sovereign bonds.
Sovereign assets.
By the country.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my question mainly is that there are certain, I don't know if you call them private currencies that are backed by things like, so for example, if you hold a specific amount of that currency, you are liable to receive a certain amount of kilowatts of power generated by solar means, right? Solar energy. So is there something like that the government could plan around CBDC where the value of the currency is not based on, it's based on energy-based assets, sustainable energy-based assets, where something like that, is that possible?
I don't think I think he's referring to mining part of it, but which is different from...
No, not mining. Sorry. So the value of certain currencies, private currencies or certain currencies that are outside regulated digital currencies tend to be defined by things like sustainable energy kilowatts, right? So I worked with a company in Ahmedabad who does this. They have a currency that guarantees the owner a specific amount of kilowatts that is generated by solar power in somewhere basically, right? So what do you think about this model? Can CBDC based on these sort of assets can be based?
No, see, that is why the Reserve Bank's stance on private currency is very clear. What it is backed by, whether there is an asset, whose liability is it. Therefore, even the stable coins, if you are referring to that it is backed by something, like you are talking about energy, who is monitoring that, whether it is pegged to the right kind of assets. Yeah. So that is why the concern, and therefore the entire globe knows the Reserve Bank's stand on private currencies, right? So the present system where we issue currency, it is backed by asset. Similarly, digital currency, as I told, it is mimicking physical currency into digital form. So again, it will be backed by assets as presently we are doing it. So there won't be any difference so far as backing by assets is concerned, even if it is digital, right?
Thanks, yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Before I conclude, let me say that there are always that regulators are kind of stifle innovation. So let me say that we are not, as a regulator, we only put guardrails, and so that the innovations happen around the boundary, inside the boundary, don't cross the boundary. So all the innovations, so therefore all the fintechs who are here, again a very famous saying that customer is at the center, and therefore we should not feel the consumer's behavior is kind of inhibiting things. In fact, they are the purpose. We should look at them and then innovate within the guardrails which a regulator time and again places before. So that's the message I thought I'll convey to all my friends.
You have summed it up very well. It's been a fantastic discussion. Thank you so much, Mr. Anuj and Mr. Rajesh.
Thank
you.
Thanks, Anuj.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And if I may please request all our speakers to come together for a group photograph.